Hey everyone, it's Carter King. If you're an educator, a leader, or just a parent who wants to teach kids about space, check out my newest book, Carter's Journey Through Space. It's available now on Amazon, Target, and bookstores everywhere. Come explore the universe with me.
Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is simple: to help you create environments where people thrive. Through real conversations, practical strategies, and powerful stories, we equip leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself to build cultures rooted in purpose, performance, and authenticity. Because culture isn't something you talk about, it's something you live. This is the Contagious Culture Podcast. Let's get started. This conversation focuses on one thing: the intersection of emotional intelligence and organizational performance. I have a leadership expert and an EQ expert, and they're going to come together and they're going to be able to give us all of the game, all of the sauce, all of the methodologies, and continue to build upon the conversation that we just had so that you can be effective, but then also emotionally intelligent. You can be productive, but also have empathy. You can be able to be the person, the change maker, the transformative leader that your organization deserves. Let's go get it. Marisa, Tracy,
Hello.
my two people. How are you?
Good.
Good morning.
Tracy, great morning. Great morning. Marisa, Tracy, can you first just start by introducing yourself and just telling us? We're going to introduce it a little bit differently this time. What is one word that describes who you are and the mission that you're on?
Emotional intelligence. Propelling emotional intelligence.
One word that describes the work that I'm doing? I'm going to go with my title, Fire Starter. I'm here to inspire that fire, that collective energy of people on fire.
I love that. What does that mean?
The fire starter and the collective energy of people on fire.
Oh, a fire starter.
Yeah. So this is funny. This is a term that I had a boss use previously in a performance review. And she said to me, Marisa, you are a fire starter. And in that performance review, I received that as a negative. And so for like decades, I carried that around as a shameful thing.
That's good.
Something to be embarrassed about, that was negative about who I am. And then as I did this unlearning and this unpacking to realize who I am at my core, I realized that that's who I am. I'm a a word nerd. Can't get my words together this morning. And the word inspire comes from that root inspire, which means to breathe life into. And I feel like that is what my mission is. I feel like that is what my work is to breathe life into. So inspire that fire, breathe life into people, light that fire, because we need people on fire right now in our world, for sure.
No, I love that. I love when people can identify the root and the origin of words and breathe life into. That's so amazing. One of my favorite words is discipline, and I think we've miscategorized discipline, especially with like our children all the time. And the root word of discipline is disciple, and it's to teach, to encourage, to empower. So if your discipline is not encouraging and empowering and teaching, are you actually disciplining that child, that organization, whomever it is that you're working with? So I think that's so important. Tracy, it's so good to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you too. Thank you so much for this event.
Of course. Let's get into it. I have a question that I want to be able to just get us started with. What is one system or routine that you've built into your day-to-day leadership that strengthens the connection in the relationships that you have? Whoever wants to take it.
Go, Tracy.
All right. She says, go, Tracy. I believe in self-care, and self-care has so many different forms. forms, right? So it could be getting up and journaling. It could be going outside. It could be opening up a book, some motivation, but just taking that time in the morning to not look at your phone the first thing. That gets your mind around the day, the being so grateful for being blessed with another day, and just pausing and getting your mind around it. So that self-care, and again, it can come in so many different shapes.
That's good.
Yeah, mine is similar. I have a non-negotiable of I need a walk every single day. I am all about the connection between mind, body, and spirit. And there is so much richness and so much goodness that happens on my daily walks. So my husband knows that like if I come down the stairs in the afternoon and I'm like, I got to go for a walk, he's like, clear in the space. You've got the room. You take what you need. So that is something that I do every day. I try to walk at least 2 miles every day, just be out in nature, get my vitamin D. I will take meetings on a walk sometimes. Sometimes I'll do an audiobook. Sometimes I'll just watch the birds and the hawks. I'm really enjoying the fall colors right now. But that's just, I call them my wonder walks, being able to just be in existence and just be.
I'm going to take that on more. I'm going to go on a wonder walk because I find when I go on my walks, it's so many thoughts going through my head. And then I have my phone and then I start jotting down all these notes, or I get on my phone and start emailing and all of these different things. But I'm going to take time to be more intentional in these times and be more present in these specific moments as well. You know, Tracy, I'm interested in you answering this question that I always get, that I still don't feel like people have really defined really intentionally. You're in the emotional intelligence space. You are an EQ expert. You're the person that that transforms the inside so that people can be able to transform things that come on the outside. Marisa, I love what you communicated. You said that you help people be well so that they can lead well. So both of you are empowering that internal so that externally what comes out is transformative teams and higher productivity and higher performance and higher retention and all of these different things. But Tracy, I'm interested in you first defining, like, what is emotional intelligence? For those people that have heard the buzzwords, those people that have seen the memes and all of these different things, and even walk around and say that I'm emotionally intelligent, but they got some issues still, Tracy. Can you talk to us about what does that mean and how would you define emotional intelligence?
Absolutely. Emotional intelligence is really understanding ourselves first, what's going on in here, and then how do we then take that information and how are we showing up in the world? That's really emotional intelligence. Are we first understanding ourselves, then we're better to express ourselves, we have better interpersonal relationships, better decision making, and ultimately we want to decrease our stress. So emotional intelligence is really understanding how are you showing up?
Yeah.
Now, Marisa, I want you to expound on that a little bit more, because your phrase again that I said earlier is I help people be well so that they can lead well. And I think you need to have that like on a shirt or something, because I find it
Noted.
Because I would definitely wear that. But when I hear that, what does that actually mean though?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think there's a lot of different parts of that. I think there is, well, first of all, let me say, people are not well, right? We've heard Brene Brown lately say that people are disengaged, they're distrustful, they're disconnected. We are disconnected from our minds, we are disconnected from our bodies, we are disconnected from our souls. And so when I talk about being well, I'm talking about taking that time that Tracy and I were just talking about to take care of ourselves, to understand who we are, to build that relationship with ourselves, to understand. I work with so many leaders that are experiencing an identity crisis because they have shifted from an individual contributor to a leader. And when you're in the people business, people are messy and people are complicated. And if you don't have a rooted foundation of knowing who you are internally and what feeds you, what you need, what your non-negotiables are, what your core nutrients are. If you don't know all of that information, you are not able to lead well. And so
good.
making sure that leaders, that people have that foundation. And, when we're doing, and Tracy, I don't know if you see this too, I feel like when we do leadership development, when we're talking about emotional intelligence, let me back up. I think a lot of times when we do leadership development, we're so focused on building that skill and helping people with the skill building.
I do agree.
But we are not building capacity. And that's what emotional intelligence is building that internal capacity so that you can then deal with and manage all this stuff that is going on in our external world and our communities and our organizations. And if you don't have that inner capacity, it's really hard to lead in a world that's so volatile and crazy.
Can I challenge that perspective, Marisa?
Absolutely.
I think what I heard, and let me know if I heard it incorrectly, it's helping us kind of expand our capacity.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to listen with the audience's ears today. What I just heard is that expand my capacity means more work, more responsibility, more stuff that I have to figure out how to balance. And then I would then have to go to Tracy and figure out, like, now I'm overwhelmed. Now I'm stressed. Now I want to leave my job and all of these different things. Can you better describe what capacity means so that I can be better as a leader? Because I do agree. Any leadership training that I've been to, it's like I'm learning how to better manipulate my staff to do more work rather than being well and doing the internal so that we can be more effective collectively. So can you expound on that a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So my other catchphrase is more without compromise. I want to offer you space to be more, not do more. I want to offer you space to be more without sacrificing who you are at your core. So I think we've got it backwards. And I'd love to hear Tracy's perspective on this. I think we've got it backwards. I think we need to focus on presence before performance in our organizations.
That's good.
I think that's how we continue to build that inner capacity and build that inner intelligence, or that inner, that emotional intelligence.
Tracy, what do you hear when you hear that?
Yeah, I hear, and what I see is people just need to take that step back and become aware. We're all so much on this hamster wheel, going to the next thing, and really just taking a minute to see, like, gosh, have I even prepped for a meeting? And I don't mean prep for, do I have all of my data points ready? Have you emotionally prepped for the meeting? Do you know who you're meeting with? Do you know how they'll potentially react to something? To take that a few minutes and just really think about, how am I showing up? And are you compartmentalizing things? We go into the workplace, but yet we all have all this noise all around us. Are we able to really be present?
I'm going to be the first one to be honest here. I don't think I've ever even considered emotionally preparing for any meeting. I think like I have chills over here when you said that, and I circled it on my paper. Like, have you ever emotionally prepared for a meeting? Because I think for me, it's always been tactical. Do I have my slides ready? Do I have my notes ready? Do I have my run of show, like for today, ready? And I've never really sat with, all right, who are all the people that I'm talking to? All right, what do they need from me on this meeting? Okay, well, in all of these different things, can you give me, and this is maybe for me and selfishly, can you give me one thing, Tracy, that I can do to better emotionally prepare for the responsibilities that I have professionally?
To emotionally prepare, I would jot down, who are you meeting with? And you can do this mentally or actually put it down on a piece of paper and think about, what is one outcome they hope to get from the meeting? Put yourself in their shoes. What do they want from it? And then another thought is, think of your allies. Who are the allies in the room, right? Who do you think is going to be along the same train of thought that you have? So those are two things.
It's interesting that you said, like, what is the outcome that they hope to get? Because it's shifting it from this is a my meeting into this is a we meeting. So I have to stop thinking about what is the outcome that I want, what is the time that I want to stay within, and what is the outcome or the desired results that I need so that I can be able to then go to my next meeting. But like Marisa said earlier, it's going from a present centered rather than just a performative centered. And I'm being present in this meeting. I'm being considerate of everyone in this room. And I'm trying to identify ways to show up best for everyone so that we all can walk away feeling encouraged, feeling empowered to be able to move forward. That's a great
Absolutely. It's almost thinking about the difference of, am I going to be assertive or am I going to be like aggressive in this meeting? If you're assertive, you know what you want to get out of the meeting. And ideally, the questions that you're asking in the meeting, you're having other people answer as if it's their idea. Because when people believe it's their idea that they're bringing forth, there's your buy-in.
That's good. Marisa, I recognize the blind spot just now in my own leadership, in my own professional and personal journey. How do you recommend helping leaders recognize blind spots that they can't see? What are some practical tools that they can use or habits that they can develop so that they can understand the blind spots in their leadership that everyone probably feels, but they don't feel encouraged or empowered to communicate?
Yeah. Before I answer that question, I want to circle back to something that you said when you said that you have never really taken the time to emotionally prepare for a meeting. And I think that's where we're failing some of our leaders. I'm not saying that we failed you.
It's all good.
You have turned out amazingly. But I think that's where we're failing a lot of our leaders. We're teaching them how to do and not how to be. And what if we switch it around and we help our leaders to be and then do? Because then they have a more solid foundation to rest upon.
That's good.
To your question, how do we find the blind spots? I think there's a couple of ways to do that. I think, Tracy is certified like I am in the EQI 2.0. And that's a great tool. That is a great assessment to help folks to have that, to lay out what are some of the blind spots. And if you do it with a leader and their team, you can help them to see, how other people are perceiving, how other people are receiving them. I think in a coaching conversation, one of the things that I will often do is when clients are sharing things with me, I'll reflect things back to them. And sometimes they hear something totally different than what they said. But like when I hear it and I share that back, and that starts a conversation about where are some of the spaces where you might not be understanding the impact that you're having on other people. I also encourage folks to ask other people that they trust, people that they have their best interest at heart. So keeping that in mind, but how do you receive me? How do you perceive me? Because I think that can also be very eye-opening. It can be very hard at times because sometimes people hear things that they don't necessarily want to hear. But I think when you ask that question again to people that you trust and know that have your best interest at heart, I think they can give you really helpful and insightful information about some of those blind spots that you might be leading from or that you might need to address.
I want to follow up with this question, and either one of you could expound on it. I hear that often where I'm asking other people kind of like, how do you perceive me? What do you see, et cetera, et cetera? What are my blind spots? My challenge, though, with a lot of people is once I receive that feedback, what am I supposed to do with it? Or how do I deal with when I don't hear something that I like and it does create an emotion that may trigger me? How do I guess it's a twofold question. How do I deal with the emotion? How do I implement potentially the change? Or what if I completely disagree with what they're communicating? Can you walk me through those thoughts that I have around that statement?
Yeah. If I could jump into what Marisa said, with us being certified and to do the 360 reviews, I think another is to just ask your staff or ask your team, what should I start, stop, or continue doing? And ask sincerely and give them time to process that. You may know some of your team members that they really prefer to just think on the spot. Other team members may want to take that question and really digest it and take time to think about how they would respond to that. That start, stop, continue.
Yes, I love that tool.
The other, when you mentioned how do you receive information, we learn so much by our own reactions. So if someone gives you feedback that maybe you're just uncomfortable with,
Yeah.
I'd almost take that as maybe I should write this down. Maybe I should write down like what is this triggering for me? Is that person right? Maybe, gosh, I didn't see myself that way. Maybe I need to do more soul searching in that area. So I think the first is when you take information, number one, you have to thank people for their feedback. Thank you for them to be so vulnerable. And what a gift it is for you to receive that solid, genuine feedback. And then to internally say, okay, well, how am I going to process this? And maybe it's not only getting information from that one person, ask a few people, vet it out a little bit. And if you do have a reaction, ask for more details.
Let me ask you this, and I really appreciate how you kind of walk me through the process of reflection and how important self-reflection is and how important allowing other people to kind of guide you to the answer, whether this is an internal thing that I may need to work out myself, or maybe it's kind of just noise in a sense as well, and you balancing and you having the power to choose how you want to move forward. My thought, though, is that when we communicate many things in the workplace, it creates conflict. It may be miscommunicated, and then it turns into a lack of trust or a lack of authenticity or vulnerability because that environment isn't safe. So a question that I wrote down earlier, based upon where this conversation is going, what strategies do you believe help teams rebuild trust after conflict or after that miscommunication or the broken expectations? And how can we implement those things or those habits into our day-to-day interactions on a day-to-day basis? Whoever wants it.
It's a loaded question.
Maybe we should break it down. What was the first question?
So let's say I have a team that is experiencing conflict. Let's say I have a team that's experiencing some miscommunication or broken trust. What is one tool or one strategy that I could use as a leader to improve communication, to improve trust or restore trust, and to understand the root of the conflict in the first place?
I would show up with empathy.
What does that look like?
Put yourself in their shoes, right? Putting yourself in their shoes. So why did that conflict happen? To understand that first and foremost. If it's just a one-on-one type of situation, maybe you decide to ask open-ended questions. Gosh, on a rating of 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself in that meeting? And they respond. What are some things that you wish you did differently? Like get them to talk. So that would be for them to like look in the mirror a little bit. The second, or maybe simultaneously, is that empathy. Like, are you really able to put yourself in their shoes? So let's say it's a big project and everyone's working on Project Xena, and all of a sudden the higher leadership team says we have to shift. It's no longer Project Xena. We're going to switch to something else. Well, the way to communicate that with your team is to certainly give them the value, help them feel valued. You were selected on this first project because of your insight, because of your technical skills. But we want to make sure that we're rising above to reduce the conflict that could happen if you're moving to a separate project. So you want to make sure that you have solid relationships.
That's good.
First, be empathetic. Second, have really good relationship management.
That's good. Marisa, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so many thoughts. The first thing that I'm thinking about is this quote, and I'm going to butcher this, so I apologize. But there's maybe Marianne Williamson talks about all human behavior is one of two things. It's either love or a call for love. And I think about that so often because I feel like part of my mission is bringing more love to our workplaces and to our communities. And I think about how we can do that in a situation where that trust has been broken, right? And how we can, as Tracy was saying, restore those relationships and create space. And I think what happens when that trust gets broken within an organization is that one or more people do not feel safe in that space. And so how do we restore that safety? How do we create and hold space for people to be brave with one another?
Yeah.
And that's going to look like when you ask that question, the first thought that ran through my head was that's going to look different for each team and each organization because you're going to have all kinds of different contextual things that are going on there. So I think it's really, like Tracy was saying, getting to that deeper and root cause of what is happening, what's causing that broken structure, what's happening, what's causing that distrust and that disconnection and that disengagement with each other. How do we resolve that first?
It's interesting because when I was growing up and even going through college, my degree's in finance and international business. And even in college, I had all of these goals. And one of my goals coming into college was to go the bio pre-med track. And I just knew that I was going to be a nephrologist and be a surgeon on the kidneys and help, save people's lives. And then I took chemistry in college and, that changed everything for me. But it's interesting how we get to these places in lives and the stories that happen or the experiences or the mentors that we've met over the years that got us to the work that we're doing today. I'd be interested for our audience to learn, what is your background? What is your story that got you to the work that you're currently doing today? I'd love for both of you to share.
Well, I can share it real quick. I am a recovering academic, so I spent most of my professional career in academia and higher education. And in 2016, we were experiencing an organizational restructure because we had a new president at our university. Simultaneously, we found out that I was pregnant with our daughter. And it was a moment of sheer identity crisis and disruption because I had this new role at home and I had this new role at work. And I didn't know, it was going back to that conversation that we were having earlier about, I didn't know who I was in that moment. And so a big part of my work is that I burned out in that time and in that space. And so a lot of the work that I want to do is empowering.
Hey, it's Kyle. Sorry to interrupt your programming, but I got a quick culture check for you. How's your team's energy right now? I mean, literally, right now. Are people feeling inspired? Or are they just showing up? See, here's the truth. Culture doesn't change because we talk about it. It changes because we live it actively every single day. And that's what I help organizations do. Build contagious cultures that people actually want to be a part of. Through keynote talks, interactive trainings, and hands-on consulting, I help leaders transform the way their teams connect, perform, and grow. So if your culture needs a little bit of spark, let's light it up together. Visit theculturelab.org, again, theculturelab.org, or connect with me directly on LinkedIn at Kyle S. King to learn more about how we can work together. Because remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching. Now let's get back to the program.
Leaders to be better leaders, to be well, to take that time to care for themselves so that they can care for others. And I also want to help to build organizations that are having those hard conversations and that are doing the hard and deep work that we need within our communities and within our organizations these days.
Well put, Marisa. Absolutely. I'll say for me, I was in marketing for 25 years and I received a 10% raise 2 months prior. And then HR and my boss walked to my office and I was like, this is not good. And I was let go a month before my wedding and decided, okay, things happen for you, not
Mm.
to you. And it took me a while to process it. And I really still believe that so wholeheartedly that things happen for you. And I started my business. I wanted to do work remotely. I looked into becoming a disc trainer, and then I just landed on emotional intelligence. So my goal is to develop emotionally intelligent leaders who create trust, they communicate with clarity, and they bring out the best in their people, right?
Yeah.
Especially in this, really demanding and high stress environments. And I know we've talked about, well, what are some ways to do that? And one thing we haven't really brought to the surface is active listening. And to really make sure that you as a leader are using active listening skills and your team. And is it time to go back to the basics and have a training on what the heck is active listening?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that though? Because
Sure. I love that topic.
I would it's interesting. I had a conversation with a gentleman at Davidson College, good friend of mine. And we were in a conversation and he didn't use the term active listening. He used the term athletic listening, and it was a completely new term. I don't know if he just made a mistake and just meant active listening, but I'll never forget that. And I don't think that many people have really defined what active listening looks like. And I'm the type of person that is similar to Marisa, where like I'm a word nerd, because I think that oftentimes we just throw out words. We don't really know what they mean, or you may communicate it and mean something differently than I may mean it. So can we talk about your definition of active listening and why that's so important in corporate, professional, and even personal spaces?
I will say that I love active listening from a perspective of staying curious. Like that's how I would expand that definition of being in the conversation where you are listening from a place of genuine curiosity, that you want to hear what the other person, I'm gonna go back to my word nerd here. So the word curious comes from cura, which means to use judgment. So often we come at it and being judgmental, but using judgment and curiosity and staying with the conversation so that you can let your curiosity lead rather than your agenda to lead.
That's good.
And to add to that, it's being fully present.
Yeah.
Did you know that 93% of all of our communication is non-verbal? Think about that for a second. That we need to look at our body language, our eye contact, our reactions matching up to the words that we're saying. So to be fully present, that's active listening.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
good.
when you're in that, when you're listening and you're not interrupting and you're taking a step back, maybe you're putting an idea on a piece of paper to ask your question, not just blurting it out. But are you then taking in what they're saying and then paraphrasing it? I heard you say XYZ and asking open-ended questions to really build that active listening, being present.
In active listening, in wellness, in empathy, and emotional intelligence, it's all about how, again, going back to being well so that we can lead well. One of the questions that I have here is, in conversations about wellness, though, personal boundaries come up a lot, like a lot. But in the workplace, what I've seen so often is that boundaries are often overlooked. So how can leaders and employees create and maintain boundaries at work in ways that support their own well-being as well as professional effectiveness?
Okay, I'm going to jump in. This is my favorite topic. I'm going to get close. I'm going to lean in. This is where we've got to talk about the word that nobody wants to talk about. It's the word resentment. When you notice that you are starting to get resentful, that is a sign, that is a signal, that is a red flag or a white flag saying, hey, one of your core nutrients is not getting met. And what I mean by core nutrients, and core nutrients are what I work with clients to help identify as the things that they need. So core nutrients, just like we have to have core nutrients through the food that nourishes our body, we also need core nutrients that that our souls need, that our spirits need. And so thinking through, like, what are those core nutrients for you? And then identifying based on what you need, how do you build boundaries from that so that you don't then become so resentful? So I notice, like, one of my core nutrients is meaningful contributions and impact. And so I notice when I am not in conversations, unlike the one that this one right here is feeding my soul. This is feeding my core nutrient of meaningful contribution and impact. But when I am not in conversations that are doing that, I become resentful because that core nutrient is not being met. So I've got to create boundaries and space within my daily schedule to make sure, or weekly schedule or monthly schedule, to make sure that I'm feeding those core nutrients. So I think that's one really helpful way to pay attention to boundaries, is that word of resentment.
How do you feed your core nutrients? Like, what are some habits, some daily practices or weekly practices that you would recommend to people, especially in these professional spaces, on how they can actually feed those core nutrients?
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody. One of the ones that I do, one of mine is movement. I have got and connection. I've got to not only be able to connect to myself, but also connect to the outside world. So one of those daily habits is that daily walking that I do. That is something that feeds that core nutrient. The meaningful contributions and impact, whether it's I am creating LinkedIn content, whether it isn't that I am making time and space to be in soul aligned, spirit aligned conversations like this one, thinking through each one of those to make sure that I am creating time and space for those. I'm trying to think of what other ones that I had. I know Tracy mentioned earlier, like having that time in the morning. I'm an early riser. Having that quiet time to, like, let my brain just settle is another one that I need, and that allows me to connect to my spiritual self, which is something that I really crave and need.
I have a question.
Do you mind if I jump into the question of setting boundaries? Is one thing that comes to my mind is really knowing your values. So do you need to take a step back and do a values exercise? I'm sure we can find one. And then when we're talking about boundaries, well, what kind of boundaries? Is it time boundaries? Is it role boundaries, communication? Is it emotional boundaries? So we need to talk about or understand, well, what kind of boundaries are we setting? So I think we need to really break everything down. What are my values? What boundaries are we talking about? And making sure then that our communication is really clear to use those I statements.
That's good.
And then finally, it's being really consistent with your boundaries. Yeah. And I'm the same person yesterday with my boundaries as I am today, as I will be tomorrow, because people will react to that consistency or lack of consistency.
Yeah. And I would add to that the energetic boundaries, like paying attention to your energy. And I will be fully transparent. Tracy and I were trying to connect this weekend. And life is just lifing a little hard here in our community. And so we were having some hard conversations last night with our 9-year-old daughter before she went to school this morning. And so I texted Tracy this morning. I was like, I did not mean to leave you hanging. My energy level was very low last night. I did not have the inner capacity and the energy level to connect last night. It wasn't you. It's just where we are. But paying attention to that and paying attention to my energetic level last night and just saying, I don't have that capacity right now, and setting that boundary that, hey, I'm not going to engage in that conversation. I know that Tracy's going to understand, even though I don't know her yet. I can tell she's an amazing human, but paying attention to that and giving yourself space for that.
And that's going back to your values, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is.
Your value was family. Family's really high for you. So that's where you needed to put your energy.
1000%. You're exactly right.
I want to challenge a perspective really quickly because I have a recent experience with this. How do you feel about when people set boundaries, but they're not received by another person, where that person on the opposite end, where the boundaries are coming from, feels entitled for access? How do we handle that conversation? Because then it creates a disconnect or a lack of understanding in those boundaries, or even in professional workplaces when I've set a boundary, but our leader or our manager doesn't really agree with that boundary, or even personally, in this case with you all, why do we feel entitled for access, or why do we feel entitled for certain things? Take it, Marisa. I feel like you got it. You smiled. I was like, yep.
Oh, there's so many things I could say.
Yeah, me too. Like, which one are we going to take out, right?
Yeah.
Which piece?
Yeah. I mean, listen, we are not responsible for other people and how they receive or perceive that. We are responsible for taking care of our energy, our time, our resources. And if people don't receive that well, that's their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to say that in a kind way.
But validating a person goes a really long way.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
First validate them, and to then to really understand, well, what's their why? Why do they keep pushing? Like, just asking, I feel like a broken record, but when we ask open-ended questions, we're going to get down to the why. Why are they pushing on your boundaries?
Yeah.
Do they not feel self-worth? Really understanding where are they in all this?
I have a question that came in a little bit earlier, and it says, if you ladies could mandate one rule in every workplace tomorrow that would make it more compassionate, what would it be?
I'm going to align compassion with listening and putting ourselves in other people's shoes.
What does that look like?
We need to respect people's boundaries, and yet we know when other people are perhaps going through a difficult time, right? So showing that compassion is saying, okay, I know that John over here is going through something at home, and listening more, and to show that compassion is to really listen without any interruption, being very present, asking what they need, being there, being present.
That's good.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, I guess to expand that a little bit, I think the rule that I would set would be giving people more space to be. Like we have created these cultures where productivity is king or queen, and that is not serving humans well, and it's not serving organizations well. And I think we really need to back up and give people space to take a deep breath. I think that would be a game changer in creating spaces that were more compassionate and loving and human centered.
Let me ask you this. Both of you are in this space continuing to help people be more what I would call present-centered leaders. That then the result of being present-centered is performance, productivity, retention, all of these different things as well. How do you coach someone, though, that lacks self-awareness, emotional control, or emotional intelligence as a whole? Like, what is a framework that I could use, let's say starting today, that would help me start becoming better in these specific spaces?
So I'd be happy to jump in on this one. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. And that is, in order for you to really understand, is to look in the mirror, right? And to ask yourself, gosh, that self-reflection, did I respond the way I wanted to? Was my impulse control way too fast? Should I have taken a step back and said, I really need to pause. I need to prep more. You mentioned, Kyle, earlier, like, I never thought about emotionally preparing for a meeting. And when we're emotionally prepared, we're more apt to be better listeners. We're hearing people. we're putting ourselves in their shoes, right? Our empathy is really heightened. What do you think of those tips?
I think that's important. I think for me, in being in a lot of spaces where, and I've been in education, and education isn't in one of those fields that there's a lot of griping, there's a lot of complaining, there's a lot of lack of value for the people that are there, contributing to growing students. And I'm under the belief that we cannot teach or create a culture that we're not modeling. And I think it's important, especially, and this is why I love education, because we have the literal direct contribution to transforming our country and our world. And how can I teach students to be emotionally aware and emotionally intelligent and emotionally just regulated if I'm not regulating my emotions?
Right.
How can I ensure that students are operating from a place of excellence and high standards and performing, and I'm not, or I'm coming late to school? I think that the best form of coaching is sometimes modeling and being a mirror, and allowing your actions, allowing your presence to be able to showcase what performance looks like. There's a coach, I think it was the Buffalo Bills years ago, that inherited their team. And if I'm getting this wrong, y'all can cook me in the comments. I believe it was the Buffalo Bills. And he came in there and he said, I wanted to create excellence as a standard. Excellence is the standard. And he started focusing on all of the little things from coming to practice on time, to wearing suits on game day, to all of these little things. And I think in 2 years, he inherited, I believe the team was like 2-12. It was a losing franchise. And I believe in 2 years, they won the Super Bowl. And it was focusing on all of these small things. And I think it's the same point in regards to self-awareness, like actively listening, paying attention when someone's speaking, writing notes before you actually cut them off so that you can hear their whole perspective, being willing to ask questions, and all of these little things over a period of time that I believe end up in creating these safe spaces. So I think it's important in totality.
Leading by example.
Yeah. And I will add to that, Kyle, that a lot of that is being able to be aware of what are those triggers, what are those things that are dysregulating you. And when I talk about being well first, like taking that time to make sure that your nervous system is settled and that you have the emotional regulation to deal with all of that stuff. Like I think about it as a parent to a 9-year-old who has big emotions right now. When she is having a meltdown, I've got to be in a space and in a zone where I am emotionally prepared and emotionally grounded enough to help her settle and navigate her big emotions. And if I'm dysregulated and she's dysregulated, then world watch out, because it is a mama and a kiddo that are just going at it. And I think it's the same thing in a leadership role. Like if leaders haven't done that internal work and are not self-aware enough to know that something is unsettling for them, that can have a ripple effect within the organization. And so that again is such a reason of why we need to do this internal work and have this emotional intelligence and create this self-awareness for leaders, because this is what's disrupting and cracking organizations. And we need to pay attention to that.
I think people are so in tune, like, oh, the IQ, and do they have the technical skills? Our EQ is more important than our IQ. And EQ stands for the emotional quotient, the measurement of your emotional intelligence. So when we're looking at, is it more important to have EQ or IQ? Boy, Daniel Goleman, the guru of emotional intelligence, he will absolutely say EQ is more important.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I always thought that EQ stood for emotional intelligence, and I just thought they used the Q instead of an I.
No.
That's so funny to me.
The measurement of. They're interchanged a lot.
Yeah.
And when I present, I do a keynote or a workshop, I'm very clear on emotional quotient, the measurement of the emotion. So people can learn their emotional quotient score. And how do they do that? They talk to myself, they talk to Marisa, you talk to an emotional intelligence certified trainer. And we have an online assessment for you. You complete that, and then you have your score in 15 different areas. And boy, my clients, they'll first go, wow, this really describes me. Yeah. And the very small percentage that maybe say, oh, I'm not sure about it, I'll say, let's go back to the assessment. You know, there's something about assessment fatigue. Maybe that's where your mind was. And they're like, oh no, Tracy, that describes me.
That's so good.
This assessment was built by Multi Health Systems based in Canada, and their number one client is military. This is tried and true.
Of course.
And if you disagree, we just go back to the assessment and say, hey, here's what you responded, be in a different place, right?
I like that. Let me ask you this, ladies. You know, if you had 60 seconds, and I love always presenting this question, if you had 60 seconds to share a message that all leaders would be able to communicate, but then they would have to implement immediately, what would your 60 seconds say and be? Whether it's encouragement, whether it's a strategy, or whether it's just something that you want them to take away.
Mine would be this, and I've already said some of this before, but mine is the collective energy of people on fire is what is going to change our communities, our organizations, our families, our world. And if we are too burned out and too tired to do that, then we are not going to create the change that we want to see in our organizations, in our communities, in our families, and in our world. So let's inspire that fire and take time to be well so that you can lead well.
And I would say, you know, organizations today, this is no doubt, they need calm, clear, emotionally steady leaders. And how do you become emotionally steady? You're very aware of your own emotional intelligence. Because emotional intelligence is not about fixing people, it's about helping good people thrive.
I love that.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody listening right now, I want you to understand that just like Tracy said, emotional intelligence has nothing to do with fixing people. You don't need to be fixed. You need to understand, take yourself and put yourself in someone else's shoes so that we can be able to help people thrive, so that we can help people transform, so that we can help people become feeling empowered and motivated and inspired, and not just for the moment. We want to be able to create a behavior and a character inside that allows them to always have that fire that was started from Marisa. We want people to be able to be well so that they can lead well. We want people to be present-centered so that they can improve their performance, their productivity, and all of the things that they're doing within their organizations and, frankly, in their lives. Ladies, where can people find you, and how can people continue to support you in your journey of helping people transform teams by first focusing on transforming themselves?
Tracy, take it away.
Sure. I can be found at Tracy Solarek. So I'm sure you have this printed somewhere. So TracySolarek.com, TracySolarek.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. And my company is Optimum Potential. And it's optimum with a Y, because we always need to understand what is our why. So my URL is OPTYMUM potential.com.
I love that. And I also am over on LinkedIn, Marisa Wheeling Ciesluk, Ciesluk. And my company is MWC Leadership. So going back to that idea that I shared earlier about more without compromise, that's what the MWC stands for. So it also is my initials, so that makes it easy. But MWCleadership.com is also another place that I'm over spending time on. And I want to help leaders do that internal work so that they can have a ripple effect within their organizations. And so if I can support folks in a one-on-one coaching capacity, if I can help folks to have the hard conversations, I think that's where the work that I want to do.
Anybody listening right now, one of the questions that truly transformed my own leadership was, have you ever emotionally prepared for a meeting, for an interaction? Are you actually taking yourself out of the driver's seat and being willing to be a passenger and allow your team around you to create the energy, the climate, and the culture of your organization. Have you ever just thought of the perspective that being more doesn't always require you to do more? Now, doing more may require you to reflect more and ask more questions and allow other people to hold you accountable. But that doesn't just mean that it's productivity based. What I've heard is that it's presence based. Our listeners, I need you to focus on being more self aware. I need you to understand that you are 400% more likely to produce leadership success if you're emotionally aware. I need you to hire one of these women or both of them to understand your EQ score so that you can improve on your EI, so that you can improve on your ROI at the end of the day as well.
Absolutely, Kyle. That's
Good.
exactly it. Is that emotional intelligence definitely impacts ROI. It impacts your productivity. It impacts people being happy at work, because emotional intelligence is tied directly to happiness. Happy employees will be more productive.
Go ahead, Marisa.
Well, I was going to say, and I think so often, can you tell? I'm like, I love this conversation. I think so often we are that leaders and organizations are so quick to invest in a new software or a new platform or a new system or a new whatever. And we are not taking the time to invest in our people. And that is the most powerful ROI.
I wish we had more time, because I
Absolutely.
want to talk about that so much in education specifically.
Yes.
We will invest millions in so much money in programming and technology and computers and all of these things, but we will not increase teacher salaries. We will invest so much in all of these things rather than development programs and being able to truly develop, refine, and empower the people within our buildings, the people within our systems, and give them a little bit more so that they can be more, rather than going out and going to find more when it's right there in your backyard.
Absolutely.
Ladies, can you give me, each of you, could you think of one question or one activity that our audience could use today, either that they can reflect on or that they can do that would improve their EI and be able to help them show up better in their leadership?
My number one is pause. Take a pause, because pausing can give you that opportunity to be more of an active listener. It can derail you from maybe saying something you may regret. But take that pause. Don't respond immediately. Don't send that email immediately. Pause.
That's good.
That was my one as well. So we are so totally aligned. There is so much power in the pause. Give yourself permission to pause. Give yourself the space to pause, to just be, and not always feel like you have to do.
Can I just ask what pausing looks like in practice? I know we're running up on time, but I just want to know, like, what does pausing look like in practice for our audience?
It's writing that email that perhaps starts with a lot of frustration and putting it in a draft and going back to it.
That's good.
It's before you pick up the phone or answer that text, you take a breath. Maybe you decide to get up and get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. It's pulling yourself out of the situation for seconds, for a few minutes, whatever it takes.
That's good.
And I would add, go for a 5 to 10 minute walk outside. Take time to be emotionally prepared for your meeting. Put white space on your calendar and hold that boundary strong so that you can pause instead of having back-to-back meetings all day. Create 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the day where you can just be still and be quiet. There's so much power there. It doesn't have to be a 30-minute meditation or an hour-long retreat. It can be a 5 to 10 second just regroup, or 5 to 10 minute, whatever you've got.
That's so good. Ladies, I just want to give you your flowers and just thank you so very much for joining us on session 2.
Thank you.
Strategy, developing teams through emotional intelligence. Anybody that's listening, please check them out, follow them, pay them. If you are on my audience, I know you have it. So invest in them so that you can invest in your team. And first, it's important for us to invest in ourselves so that we can do the inner work, so that we can be well, so that we can ultimately lead well. Thank you so very much. Thanks for tuning in to the Contagious Culture Podcast. If this episode challenged or inspired you, hey, take a second to share it with someone who's building culture in their world. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself join the movement. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or YouTube at Kyle S. King for more tips, tools, and methodologies to be able to help you create this ecosystem of absolute excellence. Until next time, lead boldly, live intentionally, and remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching.